What does it mean for you to give a philosophical account of slurs? What are the sorts of things that you're endeavoring to explain, and the difficulties that arise in doing so?
Well, the main thing is that I have three episodes of my life, three periods of my life where I went back to slurs. In the aughts, I collaborated with Lavelle Anderson. He was a third-year graduate student. He wanted to read Williamson on slurs. I was shocked that Williamson had written on slurs. I said, "You mean Tim Williamson from Oxford?" He said, "Yeah." "On slurs?" He said, "Yeah." Turns out that his paper uh, had several misfortunate facts about it. One was that he was writing about conventional implicatures because he thinks that slurs are like conventional implicature items at a time when Chris Potts's book was just surging forward. I don't know if you read the book or not, but one of the key parts of the book is that no paradigm example, no example that has ever been proposed as a conventional implicature item in Grice or anywhere else, Kripke or anyone else, turns out to be one under Potts's analysis. So in the Potts
Huh.
analysis, uh, uh, slur terms, conventional implicature items are like appositives. Like Robinson, who I'm now talking to, is at Stanford. So it's like who I'm talking to, that part there. It's sometimes called non-restrictive relative clause, sometimes called an appositive, like J.F. Kennedy, the President of the United States, was assassinated. So that's not like but or any of the other examples of implicatures that Grice and others use. So that's an interesting fact by itself. But independently of that, if you look at the paper, it's more in the style of, Dummett, I don't know if you know this, but Dummett wrote on slur terms, and Bob Brandon wrote on slur terms as well. But all three of those authors, Williamson, Brandon, and Dummett, all wrote about them in a way that was really in the service of sort of meta-semantics. They were trying to figure out whether they could defend a certain kind of inferentialism in terms of meaning determination. So, like someone might say the meaning of the word "and" is the fact that P and Q imply a P, or P, comma, Q entail P and Q. You don't understand the ampersand. You don't understand "and" if you don't know that fact, or
Right.
so on, etc. Those are all inferential patterns that you think you associate the meaning of them. Well, these philosophers are inferentialists, at least Dummett and Brantham are, in the sense that they think that all words are like that. Every word is like that. That though the meaning of the words knows an inferential pattern, it's conceptual role, something like that. And slur terms help them make that case. So they're not really interested in slur terms per se. They're interested in using facts about common sense, facts about easily accessible facts about use of slur terms to defend a certain metasemantics about natural language semantics. So the only paper I could find, actually, written before Lavelle and I were writing, was a paper by Jen Hornsby on silentism, which was written, I think, in the 90s or maybe even 80s.
Silentism?
Yeah. The idea that
I'm not familiar with that.
well, the idea that the way in which people silence other people, that you like if someone, especially in a room, this has happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you as well. You're in a room and some xenophobe walks in and uses a slur term. How do you react? You think, well, one reaction would be to say, I'm just backing off. I'm not part of this conversation. That's silencing, right? You react by silence. Well, but the problem with that is that silence often means acceptance, right? If you don't say anything, you're basically letting the person put something on the record, the conversational record, that shouldn't go on the record. You don't want it anywhere near the record. So there's those issues. And I thought the papers, you should just take a look at Jen Hornsby's paper. It's in the document I sent you. It's in the bibliography, so you can get it easily. It's definitely worth reading. It still holds up really beautifully today. But other than that, the aughts were empty. And Lavelle and I spent an entire year reading Williamson over and over and over again. Anything else that was connected to it, we could find, we would read. And at the end of the year, we decided to write a book report, like how we spent our year together. And we wrote it up. I sent it off. I don't know why we did this. It felt to me, it didn't feel like an essay. It felt like a book report. We sent it off to Noose, and they accepted it right away. And the thing has like nearly 400 citations, which is extraordinary. And given that it's a paper I put the least amount of energy into, in some sense or other, it's got a lot of citations for an article. But then in the teens, Mathew Stone and I were working on stuff on convention and implicatures and imagination, use of imagination in language situations. And he wanted to go back to slur terms with me. So we went back and we added a new layer of theory on it. And then in the 20s, Stojnic started reading the papers that I had written with Stone, who she collaborates with regularly, and with Val Anderson, and she wanted to return to it. So it's three different cycles, so to speak. And each cycle, I kind of reject the view before, but I add on to it. It's not really rejected entirely. I just add on to it. So I've been adding stuff onto it. I hope I'm done. I hope there's another decade of this, but we'll see. So writing the book I think one of the things that's interesting is that when we wrote our original article, we realized immediately that the dominant view was that whatever makes slurs offensive, it has something to do with their meaning. That was the dominant view.
Is that the pejorative content
Yeah,
account?
that's the majority content.
Okay.
So the first 6 chapters, the chapters 2 through 7, I guess, are all about various ways in which you can make sense out of this idea that's the meaning. Is it predicative? Is it presuppositional? Is it conventional implicature? Is it perspectival? Is it pragmatic? We go through all the various accounts. What's fascinating is, much like a salesperson, Fodor used to tell me that when he was at MIT, the economics department would figure out what was popular at any given moment, figure out what the properties were, and whether there were any niches that weren't filled in yet. So you'd say, well, it was tasty but hard, chewy but not easily swallowed, and so on. And you'd say, well, we don't have anything that's not easily swallowed but tasty. Let's find that out. So all the little boxes had to be filled in. That's what's been going on in philosophy about subjects. Every possible theory imaginable has been adopted by someone. Each person's trying to find their own niche. So although there was nothing written in the aughts, now there are hundreds of papers written on these topics, and every position you could think of has been adopted by someone or other. And the standard view is still the view that it has something to do with content in some way or other, either conveyed semantically or conveyed pragmatically, mostly semantically. Mm-hmm. So you have predicative accounts, those are the earliest ones, Chris Hom and some others, Robert May. You have presuppositional accounts advocated by, let's see who does those. There's the French linguist, what's his name, who's at NYU. He's mostly in Paris, but he's at NYU as well. Schlenker is a presuppositionalist. You got people like Tim Williamson advocating, and also Chris Potts at some stage of his career advocating a conventional implicature account. You have people like Liz Camp and Robin Cheshin offering an expressivist account, and also Potts more recently. Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, though, but one group of these, they're pejorative content accounts, but wouldn't Liz's be a non-content account?
No, she thinks perspective is part of content meaning.
Okay, so these are all content accounts.
All content accounts. So she's the first one to tell you, no matter how open-ended it is, the perspective might be, it carries meaning. It's part of the assertion. But she's impressed by the fact that if you say someone's the N-word, and I say, no, he's not, it looks like we're having a debate of some sort. What kind of debate are we having? She thinks about content. So, and then there's pragmatic accounts like René Bergeron and I think he was at Stanford, Jeffrey Nunberg. They're offering pragmatic stories. They're not Gricean stories, but they're pragmatic in one sense of the word. They're not about content in the semantic sense. That's the part that's not easy to chat about over this kind of format. Take more time. So I go through all those with Una, and we agree that they're all wrong. None of them works. We go through general problems and then specific problems as well. And then we turn to non-semantic accounts. And I have to admit that I'm a proponent of each of them. Each of the non-semantic accounts I've endorsed at some point in my career. So the first one is the prohibitionist one that Lavelle and I advocated, which says that the reason why slur terms are bad is because they're prohibited. They've been banished. And anyone who violates the prohibition is committed an offensive crime. The second one says that, no, they carry all these tonal. It's all about tone. They carry these attitudes towards individuals, and that's what we find offensive. And the third one is the one that I'm defending now, the articulation view, which I'll come to later. It's a view that sounds preposterous on its face, but there's a lot of data for it. And it's hard to explain it on any of the other accounts. So someone's got to explain it. We offer an explanation. But I haven't said anything about it yet. I'll come to that a little bit later.